Good morning, Namaskar. In this milestone year of our nation's independence, it is an honor to welcome in our midst a scholar of such eminence as Dr. Sugato Bose. Educated at Presidency College, Calcutta, he obtained his PhD degree from the University of Cambridge. Dr. Bose taught at Tufts University before he accepted the position of Gardiner Professor of Oceanic History and Affairs at the Harvard University. He is also the director of the Netaji Research Bureau, Kolkata. Dr. Bose has several publications to his credit, which have contributed immensely to a deeper understanding of colonial and post-colonial history, political philosophy, and economic thought. Dr. Sugato Bose has also served as a Member of Parliament for 5 years, representing the Jadavpur constituency. Dr. Bose has also made valuable contributions to research work on Rabindranath Tagore, publishing and lecturing widely on Tagore across America, Europe, and Asia. It is in the fitness of things, therefore, that our program this morning is inextricably linked with Rabindranath Tagore. The context of our program is the festival of Rakhibandhan, which we celebrated just last week. A festival which has been associated with the bonds of love between brothers and sisters was given a unique interpretation by the great poet of nationalism a little over a century ago, in the wake of the Partition of Bengal in 1905. This message of unity and oneness remains as relevant today as it was over a century ago. In this milestone year of our nation's independence, the students and teachers of Indus Valley World School have come together to recall the lofty ideals of Tagore and renew our pledge to create that heaven of freedom that our freedom fighters had dreamed of. And it is a rare privilege for our students and teachers to perform in the august presence of the grandnephew of one of India's great freedom fighters, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Sugato Bose on stage, and I request our principal, Mrs. Reshma Bhattacharya, to escort Dr. Bose on stage and felicitate him.
Fellow teachers and dear students, I'm delighted to be able to join you this morning on the 75th anniversary of our independence. Last evening, I was at Netaji Bhavan, which was a center of the freedom struggle, where a book written by my mother, Krishna Bose, titled Netaji, Subhash Chandra Bose's Life, Politics and Struggle, was being released. When I was about your age, when I was a high school student, I would often go with my parents, Dr. Shishir Kumar Bose and Krishna Bose, to Independence Day gatherings. And I would always hear them say that the 15th of August is at once a day of great joy and a great day of great sorrow for us. And they would explain that it was a day of great joy because it was on this day that we won freedom from British colonial rule. And they would tell me that your generation will never understand the utter abjection, the humiliation of living under foreign rule, to be denied equality of status, the oppression and the exploitation of that era. But at the same time, they would say that we were very sad that day because our country had been partitioned, ostensibly along religious lines. Purna Swaraj, complete independence, and unity had been the twin goals of the freedom struggle. And it is worth remembering that the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, did not take part in the festivities taking place in New Delhi. Instead, he was in the Beleghata neighborhood of North Calcutta. He kept a fast. He decided to remain with those who were poor and obscure. And the next day, he published an editorial in his journal titled Harijan, Miracle or Accident. Kolkata had remained peaceful on the 15th of August, largely because of Gandhiji's presence. And he answered his own question, saying that it was neither miracle nor accident. It was just an expression of the desire of the people to dance to God's tune. He said that we have drunk the poison of hatred, and that is why this Amrita of peace, friendship, kamaradari is tasting so sweet, and we must never forget that. Unfortunately, peace did not reign in many other parts of India, particularly Punjab, which, in addition to Bengal, was the other province, proud of its cultural and linguistic unity, that had been divided when the British quit India. But on this 75th anniversary of independence, I would like to share with you some of the more uplifting stories that I have heard as I was growing up. Now, let me begin with Rabindranath Tagore, who was mentioned by Dr. Amita Prasad. And let me just say that, there had been a first partition of Bengal, 1905, which Rabindranath had opposed. And it was in October of 1905 that he gave a new interpretation to Rakhibandhan. And people of all different religious communities, all different genders, came together in a spirit of fraternity. As I was coming to speak to you, I could hear his song being played. Bidhir bandhon katbe tumi, emni shaktiman, tumi emni shaktiman. You will cut the bond decreed by providence. Are you so powerful? And that first partition of Bengal was rescinded. But unfortunately, in 1947, our country got divided, and that partition was accompanied by a colossal human tragedy. If you visit Netaji Bhavan, where the Netaji Research Bureau has a beautiful museum, you will see on the screen Rabindranath Tagore and Subhash Chandra Bose together in Calcutta in August 1939. And in that moving film footage, Rabindranath recites the song that he had composed in 1905, Banglar Mati, Banglar Jol. And at the very end, he says, Banglar Bahu Bharater Bahu ke bolodik, Banglar Bani Bharater Bani ke shotto koruk. Let Bengal's arm lend strength to India's arm. Let Bengal's message make India's message come true. I hope that those of you who haven't yet visited will come and see this temple of freedom, where we have tried to preserve for posterity, for the new young generation, the best traditions of our freedom struggle. Now, I did not have an opportunity to see for myself the great leaders of the independence movement, Mahatma Gandhi and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose being at the top of that list. But I did see Jawaharlal Nehru, who made his famous Tryst with Destiny speech at the midnight hour of 14th, 15th August 1947, when he visited Netaji Bhavan in 1961. And I have photographs as a child at Nehru's feet, I'm sure obstructing his passage as he was going through the museum. But I did grow up meeting many men and women who had participated in our freedom struggle, and those who had worked very closely with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Among them, for example, was S.A. Iyer, who was the Minister of Publicity of the provisional government of Azad Hind, which Netaji had proclaimed in Singapore on the 21st of October 1943. From him, sitting on the veranda of our home at Woodburn Park, I heard how Netaji wrote the proclamation of freedom all through the night on the 19th of October, did not cross out a single word, and simply handed over the handwritten pages to Abid Hassan and N.G. Swami to be typed up and to be printed for the ceremony on 21st of October. I have also heard from him the story of the grim retreat from Burma to Thailand. Abid Hassan used to come and stay with us, both at Woodburn Park, and then we moved to our new home on Sharat Bose Road. And in 1976, we had a marathon interview with him, lasting several days. And my mother wrote a beautiful article based on that conversation. Abid Hassan was from Hyderabad in the south. He had joined the freedom movement under Netaji in Europe. He traveled with Netaji in a submarine on his 90-day voyage in 1943, was very close to Netaji in Singapore and Rangoon, and then he went to fight for the Azad Hind Forge in Imphal. You know, when I heard those stories being related by the actual participants, I cannot tell you the feeling that went through the minds of a young person. I was about your age when I first heard these stories, or even younger when they were being told. And of course, my father was a participant in the freedom struggle. He was eventually imprisoned in an underground cell in the Red Fort, where the flag of independence was finally raised, and also in the Lahore Fort. And in December of 1940, after a hunger strike, Subhash Chandra Bose was sent to his home on Elgin Road, and he called my father, who was just a 20-year-old medical student, not much older than you. And his uncle asked him to sit on the bed next to him and asked him a searching question. Amar ekta kaj korte parbe? And what was that kaj? What was that work that he had to perform? It was to help Netaji plan and execute the escape from India. So on the night of 16th, 17th January 1941, my father drove his uncle in his Wanderer car from Calcutta to Gomo station. It was called in history Mahanishkraman, the Great Escape. And from there, Netaji traveled alone in disguise. He took the name Muhammad Ziauddin on the Delhi Kalka mail from Gomo to Delhi, and then by the frontier mail from Delhi to Peshawar. There he was received by Mia Akbar Shah, who arranged his travel from Peshawar to Kabul. Then, disguised as an Italian, Orlando Mazzotta, he traveled from Kabul to Moscow and then to Europe. But the war situation changed, and that is why he had to come all the way by submarine from Europe to Asia in the early months of 1943. And if you just consider that year, 1943, Netaji was in Europe. He only reached Asia in May. He took over as the Supreme Commander of the Indian National Army on the 5th of July, 1943. On the 21st of October, he proclaimed the Azad Hind government. And by the end of the year, before the end of December of that same year, he was standing on Indian soil on the Andaman Island and paying tribute to the generations of revolutionaries who had been executed or spent life sentences in the cellular jail. And then the Azad Hind Fauj fought the valiant battle for freedom with Chalo Delhi on their lips in northeastern India during 1944 and 1945. And what were the key features of this movement? Netaji was able to give equal rights and equal status to people belonging to all the religious communities and all the linguistic groups of India and all the genders. And that is why in his brave army there were Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians. I've mentioned that Mia Akbar Shah received him in Peshawar. Abid Hassan accompanied him on the submarine. The commander of the first division of the INA was Muhammad Zaman Kiani. And the person who was his only companion on his final tragic flight was Habibur Rahman. And when the British put on trial 3 INA officers at the Red Fort, they chose one Hindu, Prem Kumar Saigal, one Muslim, Shahnawaz Khan, and one Sikh, Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon. The INA officer who built the INA memorial, the monument, with their motto, Ittifaq, Etmad, Qurbani, emblazoned on it, unity, faith, sacrifice, was a Christian, Cyril John Stracey. And what was most important was that Netaji believed in the equality of men and women. And in his Indian National Army, there was a Rani of Jhansi regiment, commanded by a Tamil doctor, Lakshmi Swaminathan, and many of the members of that regiment were ordinary South Indian rubber plantation workers of Malaya. So you can see that that spirit of unity has to be rekindled today. You are going to be celebrating Independence Day by highlighting Rabindranath Tagore. We must remember that Tagore was a critic of narrow nationalism. He was an old-style patriot. He loved his country, wrote beautiful songs, but he also warned that narrow nationalism could lead to the conflicts such as the one that he witnessed during World War I. And that is why in 1916 he wrote an important book based on lectures titled Nationalism. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was prepared to sacrifice his all for his country. But what kind of nationalism did he believe in? He would always say that we want a nationalism that will inspire the spirit of service among our people, fellow feeling. You know, you have all gathered together after 2 years of missing Independence Day. It is that fellow feeling that he was talking about, cultivating. And the other feature of genuine, broad-minded, generous nationalism is that of instilling and inspiring the creative faculties of our people. But he was always opposed to any nationalism that was narrow or selfish or arrogant, because nationalism can very easily degenerate into chauvinism and also aggressive imperialism. That is something that we must always guard against while devoting ourselves to the service of our fellow beings. And we also need to remember Tagore's injunction that humanity is always above the nation. Therefore, let me conclude by singing for you a few lines, not of the national anthem, but a few lines from the second verse of Tagore's Janagana Mana Adhinayaka Jaya He, so that you don't need to stand. In any case, Gandhiji used to say that it is not strictly necessary to stand up when a national anthem is played, because in his view, the father of our nation believed that that's a Western practice. It's not an essential characteristic of Indian culture. But in any case, I'm not going to sing the first verse of that beautiful song, but just to capture the spirit of the kind of love for the country that Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose believed in. Let me remind you of what Tagore wrote and the Hindustani spin that was given to that particular verse by Netaji and the Azad Hind movement. So here are those beautiful lines. Aharaha tab avhan pracharito shuni tab udar bani Hindu Buddha Sikh Jaina Parashik Musalman Krishtani Purab Paschim Ashe Tab Singhasana Pashe Prem Har Hai Gatha. And the Azad Hind version, composed by Mumtaz Hussain and Abid Hassan with Netaji's help, went thus. Sabke dil mein preet basaye teri meethi vaani har sube ke rehne wale har mazhab ke prani सब भेद और फर्क मिटा के सब गोद में तेरी आके गुंथे प्रेम की माला. So on this 75th anniversary of independence, let us pledge to unite all of the communities of India and the entire world, bind them together with a garland of love. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bose, for that erudition. And we will hold each and every word that you have shared with us very, very close to our heart. And it is particularly important for the young minds that are sitting in this auditorium to understand the value and importance of what you have said. We thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. In the 75th year of our nation's independence, it is a good time for us to recall the rich legacy given to us by our forefathers. The freedom that most of us take for granted today did not come to us easily. On this occasion, we, the students and teachers of the Indus Valley World School, pay homage to our motherland and to the thoughts and ideals of our freedom fighters and philosophers that they held so dear.
The word means different things to different people. In this milestone year of the nation's independence, let us delve into the history of our freedom movement and look at one of its most iconic phases, the Swadeshi movement in Bengal.
In 1905, the British government decided to partition the province of Bengal, apparently on grounds of administrative convenience. However, the people of Bengal knew that it was a deliberate attempt on the part of the British Raj to play the age-old game of divide and rule.
আগুনে যতই ঘেরো আছে বল দুর্বলেরও ভাবনা যতই বড় আছে ভগবান আমাদের শক্তি মেরে তোরাও বাঁচবি নেরে আমাদের শক্তি মেরে তোরাও বাঁচবি নেরে বোঝা তোর ভারী হলে চুপবে করি খা বেদের বাঁধন কাটবে তুমি এমন শক্তিমান তুমি কি এমনি শক্তিমান আমাদের ভাঙা গড়া তোমার হাতে এমন অভিমান তোমাদের এমনি অভিমান বিধির বাঁধন কাটবে তুমি
This attempt to divide the people on communal lines didn't go down well with the people of Bengal. Their anger against this arbitrary decision found a voice in the prolific writings of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. Through his powerful compositions, Tagore questioned the power of the British to crush the power and spirit of the people of Bengal and break their strong bond of unity. The beauty and glory of the motherland was what Tagore proclaimed through his passionate writings.
Ah In the words of Gurudev,
যেহেতু বাঙালি জাতির সর্বজন প্রতিবাদ সত্ত্বেও গভর্নমেন্ট বঙ্গচ্ছেদ কার্যকরী করার সিদ্ধান্ত করিয়াছেন, আমরা এত দ্বারা সংকল্প গ্রহণ ও ঘোষণা করিতেছি যে আমাদের দেশের অঙ্গহানির বিস্ময় ফল প্রতিরোধ করিতে এবং জাতীয় সংহতি অটুট রাখিতে আমরা সমবেতভাবে আমাদের সর্বশক্তি প্রয়োগ করিব। ঈশ্বর আমাদের সহায় হোক।
The day of the partition, 16th October 1905, was observed as a day of mourning, prayer, and fasting. Cries of Bande Mataram rang out from every town and every village. The people protested the British policy of partition in a unique manner by organizing Rakhibandhan to demonstrate the unbreakable bond of unity among the people. Rabindranath Tagore has given us an eyewitness account of this day. In his words,
রবি কাকা একদিন বললেন, রাখি বন্ধন উৎসব করতে হবে আমাদের, সবার হাতে রাখি পরাতে হবে। ঠিক হলো, সকালবেলা সবাই গঙ্গায় স্নান করে সবার হাতে রাখি পরাবো। সামনেই জগন্নাথ ঘাট, রওনা হলাম সবাই গঙ্গা স্নানের উদ্দেশ্যে। রাস্তার দুধারে বাড়ির ছাদ থেকে আরম্ভ করে ফুটপাত অব্দি লোক দাঁড়িয়ে গেছে। মেয়েরা খই ছড়াচ্ছে, শাঁখ বাজাচ্ছে, মহা ধুমধাম, যেন একটা শোভাযাত্রা। দিনুও সঙ্গে ছিল। গান গাইতে গাইতে রাস্তা দিয়ে মিছিল চলল।
আজ বাংলাদেশের হৃদয় হতে কখন আপনি তুমি এই অপরূপ রূপে বাহির হলে জননী। ওগো মা, তোমায় দেখে দেখে রাখি না ফিরে, তোমার দুয়ার আজি খুলে গেছে সোনার মন্দিরে। ওগো মা, ডান হাতে তোর খড়গ জলে হাত করে শঙ্কা হরণ, দুই নয়নে স্নেহে হাসি, লালাট নেত্র আগুন গরম। ওগো মা, তোমার কি মূরতি আজি দেখি রে, তোমার দুয়ার আজি খুলে গেছে সোনা।
রবি কাকাকে দেখবার জন্য চারিদিকে ভিড় জমে গেল। স্নান সারা হলো, সঙ্গে নেওয়া হয়েছিল এক গাদা রাখি। সবাই ওর হাতে রাখি পরালুম। ছেলে মেয়ে যাকে পাওয়া যাচ্ছে, কেউ বাদ পড়ছে না, সবাইকে রাখি পরানো হচ্ছে। পাথুরে ঘাটা দিয়ে আসছি, দেখি বীরু মল্লিকের রাস্তা বলে কতগুলি সহিস ঘোড়া মলছে। হঠাৎ রবি কাকা ধাঁ করে বেঁকে গিয়ে ওদের হাতে রাখি পরিয়ে দিলেন। ভাবলুম, রবি কাকা করলেন কি? মুসলমানকে রাখি পরালেন, এইবার একটা মারপিট হবে। রাখি পরিয়ে আবার কোলাকুলি। সহিসগুলো তো হতভম্ব কাণ্ড দেখে।
The protest against the partition of Bengal took on an unprecedented character in the form of a decision to boycott the use of British goods, including cloth, sugar, salt, etc. This was the beginning of a mighty upsurge which also extended to the social boycott of people who bought or used British goods.
the flip side of the boycott movement was to take a solemn vow to use only Swadeshi goods. Students were at the forefront of the movement, organizing picketing of shops selling foreign goods, bonfires of foreign cloth, and spreading the message of Swadeshi.
with his soulful songs composed at this time, was the poet of this new nationalism. We recall one of his famous compositions of this time, where he fervently prays that all the sisters and brothers of Bengal should remain united in the face of adversity. a message that remains relevant even to this day.
The message of boycott and Swadeshi spread to other parts of the country, a movement which had begun as a protest against an unpopular administrative order soon merged into the broader current of the Indian national movement. To quote Gandhiji, the real awakening of India took place after the partition of Bengal.
The beautiful bond of brotherhood between the Hindus and Muslims and the lofty sense of idealism that Tagore spoke of in 1905 is perhaps even more relevant today as our nation stands at a critical crossroad. Divisive forces have threatened to dismember the unity of the citizens of our nation, and threats to the long-cherished ideals of our freedom fighters abound.
किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। कहीं मंदिर की परछाई, कहीं मस्जिद का साया है। न तब पूछा था हमसे और न अब पूछने आए, हमेशा फैसला करके हमें यूं ही सुनाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। हमें फुर्सत कहां रोटी की गोलाई के चक्कर से, हमें फुर्सत कहां रोटी की गोलाई के चक्कर से। न जाने किसका मंदिर है, न जाने किसकी मस्जिद है, न जाने कौन उलझाता है इन सीधे सच्चे धागों को, न जाने किसकी साजिश है, न जाने किसकी ये जिद है। अजब सा सिलसिला है ये, न जाने किसने चलाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। वो कहते हैं तुम्हारा है, जरा तुम एक नजर डालो। वो कहते हैं तुम्हारा है, जरा तुम एक नजर डालो। वो कहते हैं बढ़ो, मांगो, जरूरी है, न तुम टालो। मगर अपनी जरूरत तो है बिल्कुल ही अलग इससे। जरा ठहरो, जरा सोचो, हमें सांचों में मत ढालो। बताओ कौन ये शोला मेरे आंगन में लाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। अगर हिंदू में आंधी है, अगर तूफान मुसलमान है, तो आओ आंधी तूफान यार बनके कुछ नया कर दे। तो आओ एक नजर डालें अहम से कुछ सवालों पर। कई कोने अंधेरे हैं, मशालों को दिया कर दें। अब असली दर्द बोलेंगे जो सीनों में छुपाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है।
Let us remember that our nation has seen difficult times, and every time humanity has called for all Indians to come together and serve mankind. Unity is the need of the hour. We conclude our presentation with hearts full of hope that the new dawn will be one of love, faith, and strength.
আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি সাগরে ভুবনে আকাশে পবনে নূতন কিরণ ছড়িয়ে দাও। আজি সাগরে ভুবনে আকাশে পবনে নূতন কিরণ ছড়িয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি পুরানো যা কিছু দাও গো ঘুচিয়ে, মলিন যা কিছু ফেলো গো মুছিয়ে। পুরানো যা কিছু দাও গো ঘুচিয়ে, মলিন যা কিছু ফেলো গো মুছিয়ে, শ্যামলে কোমলে কনকে হীরকে ভুবন ভূষিত করিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সুতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি বিনায় মোরাজে শননে গরজে জাগিয়া উঠুক গীতি গো। আজি হৃদয় মাঝারে জগত বাহিরে ভরিয়া উঠুক প্রীতি গো। আজি বিনায় মোরাজে শননে গরজে জাগিয়া উঠুক গীতি গো। আজি হৃদয় মাঝারে জগত বাহিরে ভরিয়া উঠুক প্রীতি গো। আজি নূতন আলোকে নূতন পুলকে দাও গো ভাষায় ভুলকে দুলকে। নূতন আলোকে নূতন পুলকে দাও গো ভাষায় ভুলকে দুলকে। নূতন হাসিতে বাসনা রাশিতে জীবন মরণ ভরিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি সাগরে ভুবনে আকাশে পবনে নূতন কিরণ ছড়িয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সতীরে সাজিয়ে দাও। আজি নূতন রতনে ভূষণে যতনে প্রকৃতি সতীরে সাজিয়ে